Angel. Charlie. Right. I'll start off with a couple explanations of what we're going to be talking about. The first one is the purpose of taxes. Taxes help us stabilize help us have economic stability. It also redistributes wealth and provides government budgeting. Indirect taxes are taxes that are paid indirectly to the government by people. What this means is when they buy something, the taxes are added to the goods, and those are paid to the government. And then direct taxes are the opposite, which the people and the businesses pay directly to the government, which is like the sales tax, the income tax, corporate tax, things like that. And then here's kind of like a basic comparison of both of them. So the basis is like I said, the direct taxes are taxes that are paid directly to the government by the people. They're taken out from their incomes, their assets, or their wealth. Indirect taxes are from consumption, like what they buy, the taxes are added at the end of the price. And then direct taxes are progressive, which means that people with higher income pay a larger percentage of it. And then indirect is the opposite, where people with lower percentages of income pay most of their income to the government. Inflation affects taxes by changing the real value of money collected by the government. As taxes and incomes rise in inflation, people and businesses pay more. But that also means that the value that the money has reduces because everything else is increasing.
Alright, so we're going to start off by looking at the USA, which is considered a developed economy. Just a few quick facts. The gross domestic product in the past 20 years has almost doubled. The population has grown by almost 100 million people, and the GDP per capita has also almost doubled, with only a slight increase in average income. So first we're going to look at a direct tax rate, income tax, which is a tax that is on the income of a household. We can see there's a general upward trend for both the 2000s and 2022, but we see a noticeable increase in the overall tax rate percentage. We only have 3 tax rates in 2000 that are over 20, as opposed to 2022 that we have 5 tax brackets which are over 20. Another direct tax rate is the capital gains tax. This is a tax that is taken on any personal sales. Say you want to sell your car. You are going to be taxed on that, and that's going to go directly to the government. It's generally pretty similar for most brackets. We can see that there has been a slight decrease in this rate over time. So we're going to take a look now at an indirect sales tax. This basically just increases the price of goods. And so what we see is that this also has generally declined as a result of time. Most sales tax rates per state vary from like 6 to 9, but yes, there's definitely less sales tax rate these days.
Okay, and then our developing country that we chose to compare with the United States is Brazil. And in 2022, Brazil had a GDP of 2.17 trillion US dollars. And with their population of 203 million, that averages out to $9,000 for a GDP per capita. And that was a pretty big change from 2000, where their GDP was only 655 billion. And their population was also smaller, and their GDP per capita was significantly smaller as well. And some background about Brazil is that it's considered to be a developing country, and it's the largest country in South America. Here's some more information about Brazil. Here's the wealth distribution in Brazil. Most of the wealth, as you can see, is held by the upper class. Nearly 80% of the wealth in Brazil belongs to the top 10% of the people. And almost 50% of the wealth in Brazil is held by the top 1% of its residents. And then on the other hand, you can see that the middle 40% of people hold only about 20% of the wealth, and the bottom 50% holds negative 0.4%, which means that on average, they have more debts than assets. And then here's examples of a direct tax in Brazil, which is the income tax. This is a tax paid by the taxpayers directly to the government, and this slide shows, as you can see, that the income tax rates in 2000 compared to those in 2024, which the tax rates have not changed. However, the brackets have shifted to account for inflation. And then here's a representation of the capital gains tax in Brazil, which before 2017, it was just a flat 15% tax. And a reminder, capital gains tax is a tax on the sale of non-inventory assets, such as a stock or a bond or something else. And then in 2024, now in 2024, it's now a progressive tax, as opposed to a flat tax before 2017.
Are you dealing with some securities, capital, or some asset? Because you are focusing so nicely on capital gain tax. That's why I'm asking. Do you have some interest for dealing with the real estate? No, but you have studied. Very good.
Okay, and then here's an example of some indirect taxes in Brazil. These graphs show the increase in tax rates for the ICMS and API from 2000 to 2024. This change reflects the economic changes in Brazil, because the increase in ICMS and IPI tax rates could provide Brazil with additional revenue for the development of the country, but also raise the cost of goods and could have an impact on consumer spending. The impact of the increase in tax rates as an economy depends on how the government uses that revenue.
Okay, so this is like the analysis of between like the two nations. The first one, so this is basically, this slide is the direct taxes, which is the income and capital gains. And for like Brazil, before like the new year 2017, January 1st, they had like a flat capital gains tax of 15%. And like after like the new year of 2017, it became a progressive tax rate. And like both the US and Brazil are like similarly laid out, like progressive tax rate and on the income tax and the capital gains tax. And then there's like a roughly 5% capital gains increase rate for the upper middle class for the US, like on average. And then for the US, like it was extended towards the upper middle class. Like the capital gains tax, like used to be like in past years, like only the upper class, but that like tax like slowly like reached and extended towards like the upper middle class, along with the indirect tax approach for like both USA and Brazil. Both the US and Brazil have like a form of sales tax, and they're like, they're sales tax, but like they're vastly different, like in the systems of collection and calculations. In the US, the sales tax is at like the state level, and not only does this rate vary state by state, but the sales tax is like a flat rate instead of like progressive rate. And meaning people have both the right to buy goods that aren't like manipulated by the consumer's buying behavior, like not accounting for excise taxes like on alcohol, like cigarettes, and that sort of stuff, and the ability to decide whether a certain state meets their needs for like the sales tax. So like you could move to one state and get their sales tax, or like stick to your state and like pay that sales tax, depending on how much you wanna pay. For Brazil, the sales tax is on the federal level, the IPI, and while Brazil consists of many progressive tax, like the ICMS and import, the sales tax is based on like how essential the good is. So like the government decides if it's essential good or not, and they'll like tax like based on that. And it's like they do that to like encourage people to buy some things and buy other things. So like it's kind of like tariffs where they like they'll like encourage you to buy like domestic goods or like buy goods made in Brazil. And like this tax like hinders the buying power of like medium to lower income consumers because they don't really have like choice and like decide. They just have to buy the cheaper option, and it just makes like the common name brand goods in the US seem like luxury items in the Brazil. And that's for business.
Okay, so anything you want to wrap up, each of you can wrap with your own remark or something, anything that you think as a student of economics that needs to be retained or something needs to be changed in this tax structure of the two countries. Anything?
Sorry, I didn't really understand.
Anything as per your thoughtfulness, you process that anything that you want the system needs to correct in the country with the economy?
For Brazil, I feel like the essential tax on like consumer goods is like not fair to consumers because like if it's like in the US it's just like taxed by like the sales tax from like the state, and like you get to decide, and it's not like based on like the essentiality of it. So like in Brazil, I feel like not like upper class, you can't really get any like luxury or like pseudo luxury goods. So like a computer, you can't really like access that if you don't have enough income to pay that tax. But in the US, if you have enough to buy like the computer, you could usually like just buy it outright.
So his proposal is that government should be more liberal for the necessary items to be out of tax bracket, and the government can compensate that tax loss in the form of the luxury products. Yes, that can be of course there. And for this economy, do you think anything needs to change for US as a US resident? I think, as per my opinion, is that this system is very in-depth for taxing. I cannot find any scope that is left for taxation. So government is very, very careful here to exploit because tax is nothing but the government source major revenue. So if the tax system is not properly implied or it is restricted by tax exemption, then it will be a loss to the government's revenue side. So one thing is that both of them are using, I think almost all the countries in the world, they are using progressive tax system on income tax and capital gain tax also. But in this country, maybe the government can be more liberal also, like in Brazil, to exempt the necessary products, like laptop can be highly subsidized by withdrawing the tax or something. Okay.